Welcome. Today we're going to be learning about payroll administration, and we're going to be using Belina Payroll as our medium for learning. So the first thing we want you to know is that there are 6 steps of processing a payroll in Belina. And step number 1 is data capture, followed by step number 2, which is processing, followed by 3, which is reporting, followed by number 4, exporting, number 5, backup, and number 6, period end. After this, we want to move on to definitions. We would want to define these words as and according to how they're going to be working in Belina. Starting with the first one, data capture. This is the input of raw information into the system, and this information consists of, number 1, the name of the payroll or the name of the organization. Number 2, the organizational structure. Number 3, the tax setup. Number 4, the company accounting details. Number 5 would be capturing the employee's personal information. And then number 6 is the employee transactional information. So that's the 6 things that you need to capture for your data capturing. After this, we then move on to processing. Processing is the determination of an employee's net salary based on the information that you would have captured in data capture. Basically, at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're using the information that you put in under data capture to determine how much the particular employee is going to go home with after having done all the necessary deductions, be they statutory or otherwise. So basically, you're determining an employee's net salary after considering all deductions, and also these deductions having been taken away from the total income. And this is done in a process called payslip input. After that, you go on over to reporting. Reporting is the creation of records based on the processed information to identify, to interpret, and to understand how the money is flowing from the employer to the employees. After that, you've got exporting. Under exporting, basically what you're doing is you are now processing your employees' salaries to the bank. So you are taking out processed information and you're putting it in specific formats or specified formats that are required either by the bank or by your third-party accounting package for you to be able to process your salary. After you've done your exporting, the assumption is that you would have processed you would have sent your employee salaries to the bank and everyone would have received their salary. So after that, in order to keep your information and to make sure that the information does not get lost in the case of damage or loss of the computer, we then take backup, which is step number 5. So backup is basically meant to safeguard your information in case of loss or damage to the computer. After that, move on over to period end, which is step number 6. Period end is basically the movement from the current payroll processing period to the next processing period. So you're moving from January into February, or from February into March, or from March into April. So that's basically your payroll cycle. You're going to be following the cycle every month, so it helps to know where to go to do it. And for us to do that, let me just log in. I'm going to log into the system right now, and we're going to go through navigation, which is the menu options that we're going to be using to do the 6 steps that we've just outlined. So let me just log in. Once you log into Belina, Belina has these frequently asked questions that it pops up every time you log in. If you've got a minute, be sure to just have a look. These can be very helpful in order to help you understand how the system works. Okay, so since we don't have time for that at the moment, I'm just going to close and move on further. So for data capturing, the first option that you're going to be using is file. After you've gone on to file, the next option that you're going to be using is edit. And after edit, the menu option you're going to be using is setup. So in a brief explanation, for file, this is where you find the options to open your pre-existing payrolls, to create a new payroll, which is what we're going to do, and to delete existing payrolls that you no longer want to be there. However, I do have to mention that for deleting, make sure that you're deleting a payroll that is not being used, or rather that has never been used to process people's salaries. And then after that, we've got backup and restore. Backup, we've already talked about being the 5th step of our 6-step processing cycle. And then we've got restore. Restore is the option that is then used to, as the name suggests, restore backups in case the system has been, or rather the computer has been damaged or lost. So what Belina does is they install a new software on the new computer, and then they restore the information from the previous backup onto that computer. Print setup is used to set up your printer in the case that Belina doesn't pick up your printer automatically, but normally it does. So 99.99% of the time, you will not have to use this option. After that, you've got consolidation, which helps in cases where you are in a multi-payroll environment. In the case where you've got a payroll, or you've got multiple payrolls that belong to the same company, i.e. an executive management and general payroll or general staff payroll, all belonging to the same company, but at the end of the day, you want to submit returns or submit reports for a single company. You then use consolidation, which basically takes information from multiple sources, or rather multiple source payrolls, puts it together, and as the name suggests, consolidates that information so you can produce singular reports. After that, we've got log off, which allows you to go back to the login screen, and we've got exit, which basically puts you out. And then after that, we've got edit. And the edit, as we've already talked about for data capture, this is where you have your employee master, which is basically where you capture your employees' personal information. You've got your transaction code, which is where you set up your transactional information. And then after that, you've got organizational, which is basically where you set up your organizational structure. And then from there, you've got setup. Setup is where we set up the tax parameters. And then after the tax parameters, we've got the company details from our first few minutes in terms of explanation. That's where we come to for company details. And then after that, after you've gone through all these three, you would have completed your data capturing process. However, the correct sequence for this data capturing process is that you go to file and you create a new payroll. After that, you go to edit, you set up your organizational structure, and then from your organizational structure, you go to setup, you set up your tax and your company details. After you set up your company details, you come back to edit, whereupon you set up your employee master and your transaction